Hello, and welcome back to another coaching video. I've seen a lot of people in my coaching sessions not fully understand how wave management works, and I want to go in depth on why you could be doing it wrong, or not understanding how minion waves work. But before we get started, I am still offering free coaching VOD reviews for anyone that would like one. Any rank, any role. Just go into the description of this video and add me on Discord so we can get one started for you. So first, what is wave management, and what techniques are we going to talk about in this video? Well, wave management is as it says, managing waves. More importantly, controlling a wave to give you an advantage in the laning phase. We also need to understand that being able to control the wave comes down to matchups, wave position, and other advantages. We can't just use these techniques whenever we want, but we need to use them when we can and use the correct one. Wave management techniques are very important in the game, but not a lot of people talk about how the battle of the first wave is very important in every game. The first wave basically determines who gets the first chance of doing wave management. They can do the first round of slow pushing or fast pushing a wave. So how do we know who wins the battle of the first wave? There are a lot of factors that go into it, but the biggest ones are the matchup, champ strength at level 1, and range advantage. Understanding matchups always comes up in every video, and is super important to know when playing League of Legends. This game is all about collecting information and using that knowledge to understand what you can do and not. In order to understand matchups, you need to play a lot of games with the same champion versus a lot of characters. But you can't just play the game, you need to understand why you lost that trade, why you died early, why your laning phase feels terrible. VOD reviews are super helpful to play back what happened so you can remember for the future and use that knowledge. Champ strength is the same as matchups. You need to play countless of games on the same character to understand how strong your character is at every stage. Range advantage is actually something that is super simple to understand. When you have range advantage, it means that your character has ranged autos and your opponent has melee autos. This means it is way easier for a ranged character to fight for the first wave because they can auto from further back and also poke out the melee champion when they step up. Range advantage is pretty important in all parts of the laning phase, and makes it easier to constantly have lane prio and wave prio. For example, in the top lane, Teemo will usually never lose laning phase, and will have wave prio all the time as he has ranged autos and other tools to make the laning phase miserable for the enemy if they are a melee character. I would love to talk more about this, but I will just save that for another video. So, try to understand these concepts when battling for the first wave. Sometimes it is better off just giving wave prio, and others it is super easy to get wave prio. But now that we have wave prio, what kind of wave techniques can we use? First is slow pushing. Slow pushing is the technique of pushing in a wave slowly into the enemy, which stacks up minions on your side and eventually crashes into the enemy tower. Slow pushing is the #1 technique that is used in every game in every lane. It has amazing capabilities of giving you an advantage in the early game, as minion damage actually matters a lot when you go into a fight. It can give you lane prio, time to roam, level advantages, positioning advantages, and so much more. Starting a slow push is very simple, but can become a little more complicated as you have another person doing whatever they want to do in the lane. In a controlled scenario, you can start a slow push just by last hitting minions when a wave is neutral, meaning both sides have the same amount of minions. But this already is a problem if your laner is hitting the minions more often. So if we want to start a slow push, we need to hit the minions more than our enemy. This doesn't fix all the problems though, as our enemy can just continuously hit minions to fast push in a wave, stopping our slow push. This is why I say that these techniques aren't things we can use whenever we want. Certain conditions should be made in order for us to accomplish a slow push. Number 1, we would like to have had a wave bounce back from our tower, and the minion wave is fighting close to our tower. This generally stops the enemy from fast pushing a wave back into our tower, as they are now super pushed up into the lane and can be ganked or poked out more easily. Number 2 is we would like some type of advantage, either like health advantage, cooldowns, mana, and etc. This is only when we want to start a slow push. The reason why fighting in a slow push is bad for the enemy is the minion count and the amount of minions that will be attacking them. But as we start a slow push, that advantage doesn't exist, so having another advantage to scare the opponent away from the wave can be super helpful in starting one. Once we start the slow push, the minions will do most of the work for us. When we have a big wave, we can start playing more aggressively, as the fight will most likely be won because of the amount of minions you have. You will also level up before the enemy on certain waves, making you have level advantage. We should protect our wave at all costs and try to start a fight. If we fight, not only do we have a higher chance of winning it, if we kill the lane opponent, they will lose all the minions who are pushing into their tower, making them go even further behind. This is why slow pushing is so good. If people don't respect it, they can be heavily punished and lose a game off of one slow push. So how do we counter a slow push? Well, countering it is not really what happens in most games. It is mostly about respecting it and just waiting for the wave to get to our tower, which neutralizes the heavy punishment the enemy can do to us. We let them slowly push into us and see us extremely safely and maybe even drop some minions. Since the wave is so big on the enemy side, your minions will most likely die before even 2 or 1 minion dies on their side, meaning we can just wait until it hits our tower to start CSing again. Once that happens, we get the opportunity to start our own slow push as the wave just bounced back on our tower. This is usually how it goes in every game, in every lane. You would constantly go back and forth slowly pushing waves into each other. You basically take turns controlling a wave and having a bigger advantage, and if you step out of line, you can be heavily punished. But you can still counter slow pushing, but only if you have other advantages, like the one we talked about before: matchups, champ strength, and range advantage. It is basically the same spiel as before, where matchups determine if you win the fight even if a slow push exists. Same thing with how strong your character is at that point in the game. And for the most part, if you have range advantage, it is much easier to stop a slow push as you are naturally safer with your ranged character. Sorry melees, but sometimes you just have to not play the game in the laning phase. Speaking of not playing the game, that is what you're doing right now. You are watching this video, and since you have made it this far, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. It is completely free and you have already watched some of the videos, so why not hit it? Let's move on to talk about fast pushing. Fast pushing is the technique of pushing in the wave as fast as possible with autos and abilities to crash a small wave into the enemy's tower. Fast pushing isn't done as commonly as slow pushing in the early stages of the laning phase, but as we get further into the game, slow pushing becomes weaker and fast pushing becomes stronger. The main reason for that is the strength of our champions and the items we have bought. The turning point of when this happens is around level 7, where most champions have substantial enough wave clear to not worry about slow pushes anymore. Minions are also doing way less damage, and fighting in a minion wave isn't as risky as before. So many people switch to fast pushing as this is where we can finally get out of our lane and do more things around the map. So what makes fast pushing so good, and how does it let us get around the map more, and sometimes even longer? Well, the perfect time to roam for any lane is when you just crashed a wave into their tower. This could either mean A, the wave will be bouncing back to you, or B, the wave will become neutral and be in the middle after crashing. There's a key difference on how to make either A or B occur, based on how you control the wave. In order for A to occur, you can either start a slow push and move to a fast push on the next wave, or fast push the first wave and have it crash into the tower right before the next minion wave comes into lane. In the first scenario, you can make the enemy laner have a choice of leaving the lane to follow you or staying in lane to crash it into your tower. If they don't push the wave, they will lose multiple waves as it slowly pushes back into you. If they do stay, they need to fast push the wave into you to at least punish you for staying too long on a roam if you did. B occurs when you just fast push in a wave and the minions die at the tower before the next wave arrives. The enemy laner can either give up on the wave and go match a roam, or stay in the lane to clear the minions. The wave won't necessarily push back into you as it is in a neutral position and it can randomly go either way, which can be bad for you, but this type of fast push gives you more time. B requires you to push the wave extremely fast, and the faster you push it in, the more time you have to go for a roam, as you just need to return before the wave hits your tower. And that is even if it does hit your tower. This type of roam you can sacrifice some minions for a longer roam, which can be okay in certain circumstances, like you getting kills. I wish I could talk more about roaming, but I will save that for another video. Fast pushing doesn't really have a counter, except finding the laner, or freezing, but freezing is mostly only used in top and bot. That is actually our next wave management technique. Freezing is the process of keeping a wave at a certain point in the lane, keeping it there for as long as you freeze the wave. Freezing is definitely a more complicated technique than fast pushing or slow pushing. Starting a freeze isn't that difficult, but keeping one going for a long time can be really challenging. In order to start a freeze, we need to have some type of advantage on our side, like again, the type of advantages we talked about before. Some other ones could be just basic advantages like you are ahead in items, levels, and also you have more HP or mana than your opponent. In order to start a freeze, the enemy needs to have more minions than us, and it is different depending on where the wave is in the lane. The closer it is to your tower, the more minions the enemy needs. The reason why freezing can be good is because it forces the enemy laner to step up to the wave to CS, and if they do, you can heavily punish them by either getting a good trade or killing them. This is why we need an advantage for a freeze, as if we don't, it can be easily stopped by the enemy by forcefully pushing the wave into us to stop our freeze. The reason why it isn't really used in mid is because the lane is so short, the freeze just doesn't matter as much, as the amount of space we have to go for a kill is so much more limited than top or bot. Also, it is way harder to freeze on most mid champs, as they have longer range abilities to forcefully push the wave in. But talking about how to do it is only half the knowledge of freezing. The other is learning how to stop one. In most cases, freezing can be a tremendous challenge to stop when we are behind. You might have already died once or twice, and the laner is ahead in some aspects, but not all is lost just yet. There are 4 different ways to stop a freeze. Some of these strats are riskier than others, but sometimes it is the only way to get a freeze to stop. One is by making the enemy use abilities on us and the wave. Remember, a wave can only stay at a certain point in the lane if there are enough minions on your side, so tricking the opponent into hitting the wave can forcefully push the wave back into you, breaking the freeze. 2 is getting your jungler to come help force the wave under the enemy's tower. This type of strat will almost always never happen, but if you are a duo with your jungler, asking them to help to stop a freeze is a safe option to getting the wave back to where you want it. 3 is one of the most riskiest strats, and you might die for it as well. We want to push their wave so the freeze will most likely crash into their turret. Sometimes it might just be worth it to take a death like this. A 300 gold deficit is better than a constant loss of gold that can get worse and worse if we don't stop it soon. The last strat is to give up one wave and start a proxy. Go around in the jungle and catch the next wave and give up on the one that was already in lane. The whole reason why a freeze is so strong is because it forces you to step up further in a lane close to the enemy, basically trying to fight for a minion. But if we ignore this interaction and go around to proxy, they can't force us to lose minions anymore, as we are just playing a PvE battle with the minion wave in between the towers. Proxying also is another type of wave management technique that I would love to talk about. I honestly don't even consider proxying a wave management technique, but more of a macro technique than anything. Sadly, proxying is mostly done in the top lane, but in certain circumstances, bot lane can start a proxy as well. But what is proxying to begin with? Proxying is when we farm behind an enemy turret, or even 2 turrets, or even in their base. Proxying is a really complicated and hard strat to pull off correctly, but it is extremely powerful in the right hands. It takes a bunch of time to understand how it works and how it gives you an advantage in many aspects in the game. If you know anything about proxying, you probably know a major player of this strat, the Baus FFS. This macro strat is used in almost every single one of his games, no matter how far behind or ahead he is, because it gives a bunch of advantages. Before we talk about those advantages, how can we pull off a proxy? Not every character can pull off a proxy really well, and some characters need help with items in order to start one. Most characters that are natural proxy farmers are any characters that have great wave clear abilities that are AoE. Take Baus's Sion for example. This character has 2 AoE abilities with his W and his Q, which takes out minion waves extremely well without taking a bunch of damage. This makes Sion a great proxy farmer, as he can stay in between the tower for a pretty long time, and clearing the wave fast makes it harder for the enemy to ever come and kill him. But how about if we aren't playing a character that is really good at this in the start? A good option is to pick up Tiamat or Balmy Cinder to help with wave clear. Stuff like Camille, Fiora, Olaf, Trundle, and many other characters already pick up these items in their core builds and can use these items that has AoE actives and or passives to help clear wave faster than ever before. In order to start a proxy, we need a way to access the area behind the enemy's turret without sacrificing a wave or getting ourselves killed. Usually, a slow push into the enemy to begin a proxy is the best move, as if the laner tries to come kill us, it might not be worth the big minion wave we are crashing into their tower. They could possibly not even get ahead if they do kill us at all, because a kill is only 300 gold, and 2 minion waves is already 250 gold. If they do go for us, try to get the next wave. If we do and die, we succeeded in doing what we wanted to do, and we will talk about why a bit later. If we get the wave and don't die, it's even better. And if they don't try to kill us, we can begin a proxy. We can also get around in the jungle if we want to be extra safe, but we need to make sure we can catch the next wave before it goes into the first tower's range. And there you have it, we have successfully started a proxy. We can continue to do a proxy in between the first and second tower, or we can go even further in and do it between the second and third tower. You might think that this is it, but now we can even go further into the enemy's base if we really want to. The further we go in, the more risk we take of meeting the enemy jungler or any other laner, but the reward can also be so much higher. At the moment, this strat kind of sounds like we're running it down, but it only seems that way at first glance. Let's finally talk about why it can be so good. The first advantage comes down to what the enemy has to do because of the proxy. The enemy laner needs to stay in lane when we begin a proxy, and if they don't, they risk losing minions to their tower that gives them gold and EXP. This also forces them to tower farm almost all game if they aren't good at clearing minions, and can make their tower take free damage for as long as the proxy is happening. Even when we finish a proxy and back, or they come and kill us, they are still stuck in lane for the next wave and somehow need to push the wave back into us to get a good back, or they are forced to take a bad back and TP. The second advantage is that it is non-interactive. This means that you and your opponent almost never get to interact at all in the laning phase. This lets you free farm all early game, and if you have a bad matchup, this can be a good strat to totally stop having to lane against that character if you can start one. The third advantage is time. Time is a big subject in League, and the higher you get into the ranks, the more that time becomes a heavy influence on what you do in a game. This strategy can give you more time in some areas, and even waste time for the enemy as well. How can it help you gain time? Well, it isn't really time that you gain, but tempo. We have talked about tempo before, mostly in the jungle, but this concept can be used in all roles. If you have tempo, it basically means you have time to do something, and the enemy doesn't because of certain circumstances like the one we said before, clearing waves under their tower because of a proxy. With this tempo, we can do a bunch of different things like roaming, backing, warding, fighting the jungler, and etc. Proxying basically strips away all opportunities for the enemy laner to get tempo, and gives it all to you. This kind of goes into talking about how we can waste time for the enemy, or again, waste their tempo. We already stripped away all the tempo of the enemy laner, but this strategy can also strip away more tempo from the jungler and other characters that are coming up to us to stop our proxy. This gives our team more time or tempo and space to work around the map as they are sending more and more people up to us. If they kill us, it isn't that big of a deal as we can just walk back to lane, basically not losing a single thing. If we get away or die to tower, well, not only did we screw up the tempo of the enemy team, it probably tilted the hell out of them. So we talked about how proxying is a crazy good strat, but how can we even stop something like this? It almost seems impossible. Well, it is as simple as monkey see, monkey do. We need to start proxying as well. If we proxy the same area as the enemy opponent, that tempo that they created is now lost, as you are now on equal timers in a sense. But even better, if we can go and proxy in a deeper area, we can create that tempo back to us. This means we can recall, and then as we walk back into lane, try to kill them before the wave hits our tower, which will usually end their proxy and start a normal laning phase again. But that is all I have for this video. I know it was a lot of information, but at least it is in a video format that you can come back at any time to watch again. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. I hope this video helped you in some way at getting better with waves, and maybe you can hit a better rank because of it. Anyways, I hope your climbs are going well, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.